I'm super pleased today and excited to have Ross Wilson from PsyMood, who is one of our network partners on the podcast. Today, Ross shares his own personal story in growing up and some of the mental health issues he faced, and which is really translated into his own personal mission of helping people solve their own mental health issues, which led him to join PsyMood. PsyMood helps our clients on a daily basis quick access to the mental health supports that people need on a daily basis. We talk a bit about the future of mental health. And then lastly, we finish up with Ross's own recommendations and his daily practices to keep his own wheels of health in balance on a daily basis. So sit back and enjoy the show. Hey, Ross, great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too, Kevin.
Yeah, I so pleased to have you on our podcast today. And for our listeners, I actually was a guest on Ross's podcast about a month ago and really enjoyed our conversation. So we're really looking forward to having you on the podcast today and just learning more about your background and more importantly, what PsyMood does and how they help people every single day. So
absolutely.
Good to have you here. Before we get into that, before we get into that, I know last time we talked about one of the things we have in common is that we are both triathletes. And I know I've been very busy training, and I believe you've been busy training as well because you have a big event coming up in August. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, my first and hopefully many more to come Ironmans I'll be doing. So I'm looking forward to it. And our conversation we had was really inspiring, especially with the athleticism and everything that you were doing and still do. Was just like, I could do it too. I feel inspired.
Good stuff. And what's if you don't mind me asking, we're hosting this on a Wednesday. Have you trained today yet? Or you've still got something to do? What's your training looking like?
Yeah, so I hit the gym about 4:30 this morning because I like to get up early and get to the gym when it's a little bit quieter. And then this evening, luckily I have two bikes because we were talking about how I got a flat. So luckily I have two bikes and I'll be able to hit the road later this evening when it quiets down a little bit here in Ottawa. I recently just moved to this kind of outside of Ottawa, the downtown area where they have just pure straight line roads through the farmland. So it's just nothing but pavement. It's beautiful. I know people get excited about jewelry, but I get excited about a straight paved road.
Straight, paved, and flat.
And flat. It's fantastic. Yeah. So I'll probably be training that this evening. And then some rain's coming in, so I'll do more of the indoor spin rest of the week. Yeah.
You really do have to look at the schedule or the weather just to plan your week and plan your days, as you know very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, same with you as well. You wake up and the first thing you do usually is you check your emails and texts. I go straight to the weather app and I'm like, okay, I got to plan accordingly. This is an indoor day or an outdoor day. So yeah, so it's difficult because I shouldn't really be picky because if it's raining, I could still be out there, but the enjoyment is not the same.
Yeah. Well, and especially it can be dangerous, especially if you're cycling. So
true.
Yeah, I had a ride this morning and actually I'm going out swimming in a lake with our triathlon club this evening.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah.
That's very nice to have a lake nearby.
Yeah. So it's a man-made lake, but it's still good just to get in the water. I actually had a race on the weekend, my first race, because I hadn't raced in 4 years due to injuries and COVID. So I thought I better get back in race, at least experience the racing atmosphere again. And it was great just to get out there again. So yeah, it was awesome. Yeah,
it's great. I'm excited that things are starting to open up, the community pools, the indoor pools, because during COVID, you couldn't swim. I mean, some of the pools were closed. So I was using these resistant bands and pretending to do the same motion as you would do swimming. It, obviously not as enjoyable, but so I'm looking forward to the summer to be able to get out and start swimming again because it's something very therapeutic about it as well.
Yeah. Well, good for you. And
thank you.
Congratulations on the goal, to do an Ironman is significant. But also the training that goes into it, I always say the training is equally or as important as the final destination, which is the race itself, and what you go through in training. And I think it relates actually to a lot of things in life, that the journey is just as satisfying, or in many cases more satisfying than the actual final event.
Yeah, it is. It's true. I think I found that a lot of people were saying it's the actual event is not as difficult as the upcut, like the training that takes place. And you think to yourself, yeah, that makes sense, because for me to just go from one extreme to the other, I was never a triathlete. I thought to myself, I probably don't have the endurance for it. But then the more I realized how much I enjoyed it, the more I wanted to expand. And then someone said to me, you should do an Ironman. I was like, sure, let's do that. And
Good
that's
for
kind of
you.
what took me here. It was like, you know what, someone suggested, and I was like, okay, why not?
Yeah. I know we're going to get into this because a lot of what PsyMood does and what your personal passion is around is helping people with mental health. And just a question for you in terms of your training, do you find that when you're out there training at those, as we said, the flat roads and long roads or the long runs or even the swimming, do you find that very therapeutic and a positive result in mental health? In other words, do you see the correlation between those two?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. The one thing that we talk about a lot is, physical fitness, but sometimes we neglect the mental fitness as well. And, for someone who has suffered from mental health issues since a very young age, physical activities was something that I really utilized to kind of disappear from that feeling, to kind of engage into something that's more productive in a positive manner. So when, I'm sure you know this, when you're on your bike and you're just seeing nothing but pavement and it's no wind and it's completely calm, there's something extremely eye-opening spiritual about that. You able to think clear. So I can go through my day of things that I was feeling on my bike. I'll be cycling going like, how did I feel this morning? Let's evaluate that. So I'm literally having a conversation with myself on my bike. It is extremely beneficial to find something that could engage your mental fitness, find activities that you could do to best feel better in that process. And I'm sure you can relate, that feeling of just silence on a bike or in swimming is so amazing.
Yeah, I just find I agree with you, and I know many others do as well. That physical fitness for me is it's great to be fit and for cardiovascular health and longevity and everything else, but also it's amazing for mental health. Yeah, and it's what it does and puts you in such a positive mindset. And like you, I try pretty much every single day to start out my day with that. Even if I don't have a lot of time, I'll still try to get something in. Just because I find if I do that, my whole day gets off to a great start and continues on throughout the day. So,
well, yeah, a lot of people think I'm crazy when I say I work out at 4:30 in the morning. And in some cases, it's when you work out, getting there is the hardest part. But once you come home and you realize what you've achieved early in the morning, the rest of the day, everything is great because you've achieved a pretty gigantic goal in early in the morning. So I always find it very beneficial.
Yeah. There is some satisfaction when you're driving or coming back home and most people are just getting out of bed.
Yeah. You can see people going to work and I've already done like 2 hours of work in a way. So it's quite relaxing to know that people are leaving and I'm coming back.
Yeah, exactly. So Ross, you mentioned just in terms of your own mental health and growing up, would you care to share just your own personal story? And in a bit, we'll get into how that relates to PsyMood and what you're doing there. But I'd love for our listeners just to hear about your own personal journey, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up with several learning disabilities, and at the time, there was really no conceptual understanding of what these are. They knew that I was slow. My mom and dad were told that, I had some issues learning. There were some issues when it came to socializing. So they kind of just put you aside to, different or slower than the rest of the students. So I was already in that kind of stigmatized box of, I know I probably won't learn as fast. I probably won't have as many friends. There was really no support at the time. Your parents do as much as they can to be supportive, but at the time there was really no place that you could discuss this openly without feeling feared of stigmatized.
What age or what age range or grade would have this been, or grades?
So this was, the entry into grade 8 into high school. So coming from elementary school, I was in a community elementary school, and my parents at the very end of elementary, they realized that I was learning a little bit differently than most people. So there was a program at a high school that was sort of like a special ed program. And they deliberately moved so they could be in that district so I would be able to access this opportunity. And it was a wonderful program, but what the hardest thing was is at the very beginning, I was already segregated away from the rest of the school. I was in a special ed program, so I already felt different. So I wasn't really feeling comfortable with everybody else because they knew that I was in a different side of the school. So I would come across the hall to a different school, to a different cafeteria. So at a very young age, I was very good at not saying anything because I was fearful of what they would say. And that happened throughout my high school years. And even when I graduated, after graduating, I still had that feeling of, well, don't speak about it because, you're afraid of what people may think. And then, in 2017, when I lost my mom to cancer, my mental health started to flare up again, thinking like, now I have no support system. Like the individual that I relied on to discuss openly about how I'm feeling was no longer here.
Sorry to hear that. Wow.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that also took me to the path that I'm on now, was the understanding of grieving and bereavement and having the opportunity to speak openly to people about how you're feeling, but also the opportunity that we came up realizing there's not a lot of opportunities for people to speak. There's not a lot of solutions. There's a lot of maybe we can help and maybe this. So throughout that process really kind of brought me to where I am now, is to try to find solutions for everybody, whether you can speak English or not, or if you have the affordability or not. So it's interesting what path we go on to, and then how we get to where we are. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, because I did a little research on your bio and background, and the thing that really struck me, and actually I wrote it down, is from all that, it seems like you're very much on a mission to help people, mission to help others. Like everything I see you've done the last number of years is to help others, which I probably is driven through your own experience, right? Or through your own supports that weren't there when you perhaps needed them.
Yeah, it's so true, because my parents worked very hard to be able to give me the opportunity to go to a special ed program in high school. I know it was expensive, and I know they struggled to make ends meet. But throughout that whole process, when I got older, and then after the loss of my mom, I thought to myself, what would happen for individuals that didn't have access, or didn't have the tools to get the support, or couldn't afford it, really? Because in some cases, affordability and access kind of prevents people from getting the support that's needed, right? So, my mission, I guess, in a way, is to find solutions to, these kind of issues that are popping up for everybody, no matter where you're from. Everyone deserves the same treatment that I got, even though it was kind of that old school mentality. Everyone deserves the same treatment that we all get.
Yeah.
And that's what really drove me to where I am now.
And were the supports there for you, like going back again to your high school years, which you said were very difficult, obviously, and you were segregated from others? Were the supports there at that point for you? In other words, were they available in the system?
Honestly, Kevin, no. A lot of the times was you would be speaking to counselors and they would say, well, listen, let's focus on what you are good at. And absolutely, totally understand that. But then in some cases, I think to myself, well, I may be good at one thing, but I really want to be good with other things too. But I never had the opportunity of learning that opportunity. And in some cases, I was told by a lot of individuals, this is just how it's going to be. You will struggle. You will have issues. You just have to understand that you're different, as they would, the term different, as they would say. So at the time, they had counselors, but at the time, the counselors really didn't have the proper training either. They were just there for support, and don't feel sad. It's okay to be different. And it's just like, absolutely, but I kind of need a little bit more guidance.
Yeah. So they were there for you. I'm thinking back to my high school counselor. I mean, they were there for you and there to listen, but they had no formal training in how to help you through those challenges or mental health issues you were facing.
Yeah. And then I think that's a key thing that you just said, is we need to also, instead of the individuals, the people that are helping need the training too. We need to support them. The practitioners also need that support, because they can only do so much with the education that they have, so it's very true.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how many parents I've talked to, again, through our company, where as a parent, you think you can just help your kids, right? And
Yeah.
we all want to do the very best we can, and we do everything we can to help our kids, but we don't have formalized training in what are the right questions and how do you help them through, some of these mental health issues that they may be facing, even though we have the best intent as parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
true.
so let me ask you then, when your mom passed away, and again, so sorry to hear that, but that was 2017, so not that long ago, right?
No, yeah.
And were there supports that you were able to access to help you through that, or again, did you just kind of do it on your own?
Yeah, going back to what you were saying about family and parents, I had my dad at the time, but again, parents divorced when I was 10. So, he's, in the United States. So he was never able to stay permanently with me through that process. And then you have family and friends. But I think in some cases, as a lot of us know, when you lose someone, when people don't know how to really help, they say it will get better. Things will get better. And it's just like, yes, then, but I'm worried about now. So there was those opportunities to have that support, whether it was counseling or grief counseling or bereavement counseling, or go to a religious facility to get some support. But I think in some cases, when you're going through that process from the past of mental health and just having to figure it out yourself, you're kind of a little bit stubborn, saying, I can figure this out. And, in some cases, I think that can be harmful, because I just close the door and say, my mom would want me to get back to work. She would want me to keep going. But then I also thought to myself, I really didn't take time to grieve. I was so told, as you are, like, hey, take some time, but you need to get back out there. You need to get going, find some happy things to do. But no one really tells you to say, hey, take some time off, relax, really kind of figure this out. There's no rush. I felt rushed, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's the old, I'll say, suck it up mentality, like suck it up and let's get on with life type of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as a guy, you want to be tough. You're like, I can do this. I'm no problem. I'm totally fine with this. But then deep down, you're like, I'm not fine with this.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's, in a way, that egotism, mentality of like, don't show any cracks. You could do this.
Yeah, which is that's been the mentality that many of us have grown up with, right?
Yeah.
And still exists in many circles.
Absolutely.
Today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you tie what your passion is in terms of helping people and helping people deal with mental health issues and bereavement? And how did that, what was the bridge between that and PsyMood?
So when I lost my mom, I started to do a lot more work in the community in Vancouver, where I'm from originally. And throughout that process of working in the shelters and organizations down there, I started to realize that accessibility to mental health and grief support was only around for individuals that spoke English. A lot of the products, the services, the support, the pamphlets were usually in one language, maybe French on occasion, but mainly one language. And throughout my community work, I noticed a lot of newcomers to Vancouver, a lot of refugees, a lot of families that are coming in from other countries that unfortunately are suffering from homelessness. And I started to realize that throughout this process, we really weren't able to provide a solution because they didn't speak English. So I started to realize that there was something missing. And then when I moved here to Ottawa, just out of luck through social media, I met Fred and Rodrigo, who are the founders of PsyMood, and they were starting to implement this idea of providing mental health solutions and support and specialists in different languages outside of French and English, like a broad variety of languages. And it made me realize that during COVID, especially when the mental health kind of kick was starting to get more and more, and the influx of newcomers to Canada, that we weren't really doing enough in Canada to help mental health in spaces that don't speak English, individuals. So that brought me to PsyMood and kind of expanding and helping it grow. And doing a podcast with you and talking about it, because I think at the end of the day, we all deserve the same rights and the same support that I get as a Canadian citizen. Everyone deserves that, whether you're not Canadian or you're not from here. And PsyMood is giving them the opportunity to utilize their birth language to get that support through a specialist that speaks their birth language. And it's truly amazing, because Canada and a lot of every country in the world is built around newcomers. We're all newcomers, and we all deserve the same access as we Canadians do.
Yeah, no, great point. And it's awesome you're helping so many people and helping so many of our members on a daily basis as well. So thank you for that. You mentioned the pandemic, and it's no secret that during the pandemic, mental health issues have skyrocketed, anxiety, depression. We see it in claims, we see it in mental health facilities. Can you just comment on what you saw out there during COVID? And secondly, I know you've done a lot of work with first responders as well. So I'd like to just get your input on that and how you're able to help so many first responders that really helped keep Canada going in a really tough time.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess at the very beginning of COVID, mental health was something that was on the radar, but not too intense. And I think over the time of lockdown opening, people were starting to fluctuate into their mental stability, especially in retail, restaurants, workplaces, corporate world, because it was come to work, nope, come to work, maybe. It was that confusion. And throughout the process, it was the fear of uncertainty that a lot of us were experiencing. And with the first responders especially was, do I put myself in a position of risk to help those when I have a family? I have a family, but I also don't want to put them at risk. But I also have a duty and an obligation that I signed up for to be a first responder. So at the very beginning of the pandemic here in Ottawa, I literally put out a message onto social media saying, I will be sitting outside of this hospital. I'm on a park bench. We can keep our distance, because at the time there was a distance. And I said, if you have to talk, I'm sitting here. And for the first little bit, no one showed up. And then after the second week, people started to just come and sit beside me with their lunch. And we just started talking. And it was, the fact is that they have the support in some cases inside the walls, but it's outside that they need the support, because they're leaving a very traumatic event and then trying to normalize again before they go to their family. And that's a very hard transition, to go from saving lives to normal to like, everything's fine, don't worry about me, I'm good. It was that middle part. And first responders, there's not a big enough word to say how much we admire and how much I admire all of them, from the people, the hospital workers to the people cleaning the hospital. I mean, they're all first responders. And a lot of the times it was the burnout of, work, the uncertainty. Are we open? Are we not? What's going on? And I think mental health really started to flare up based around uncertainty. I sort of look at it as like triathlon. Like, if you're going the distance, but you're feeling yourself getting tired, it's that uncertainty of, am I going to make it? And that fear of like, I may not finish the race. So it was the same with the first responders. It's like, I want to keep going, but I don't think I can, because I'm tired. So that was a big eye opener too, as well.
Well, and it's been a very long haul, and
Yeah,
like, it's not like it's over, like so many first responders I know are, they're looking for alternative work, alternative jobs, just because they can't do it anymore. And understandably, I mean, one of the stats that I read was that during COVID, 82% of Canadians experienced increased anxiety. And I actually say, I would say it's 100%. Like, if any, I don't know one person that I know that would say that, oh, they've had decreased stress during COVID. And in particular, first responders. I mean, remember when COVID first hit, which I'm going to say hit Canada, probably was around March 2020, I'm thinking.
Mhm.
And, every night at 7:00, you'd go outside or go on the balcony, and you could hear people like, clanking their pots or pans and really giving tribute to first responders. And, today I wish that was still happening, right? Just to show the appreciation, because our hospitals are still overburdened and full. due to the stress that COVID put on our hospital system.
Yeah, and I also read an article, I think it was last week, where they were saying they're predicting in the next 2 to 3 years that 70% of our healthcare system or individuals like nurses will probably leave and find other alternatives of work because of the influx and the burnout and the stress. And I mean, just being present in some of these hospitals, working with the work that I'm doing, you could see why. I mean, you walk into the front door and it's already just intense. And you think to yourself, I haven't even got to the units yet.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that because, as you know, our organization, we have nurses through our nurse navigation team right across Canada. And I've noticed a dramatic difference when we go out to hire now, like it's a floodgate of applications coming in, it's super qualified people. And a lot of the story is just what you said. People, they just say, you know what, if I can work from home and I just don't want to go through that burnout, and if I know my hours and I can work in the peace of my home and have virtual meetings to help people on a daily basis, I'd much rather be in that environment.
And it's amazing that, with yourself and your team, that you're able to hire individuals like that, because, at the end of the day, they work so hard to get to where they are. And it would be a shame to not have them continue that journey, but in a better scenario. And you're right. If how much stress is off your shoulders, knowing that I get a paycheck at this time, these are my hours, I have opportunity to go see my kids, this is my structured hours that I could live around. I mean, the hospitals, I know it's difficult to kind of have that structure, but it's nice to know that there's companies out there and individuals like yourself that see the benefit of having that kind of structure and supporting the nurses, because the nurses to me will always be those heroes that nobody talks enough about. Even teachers, counselors, anyone that's working in the front line to help people, whether it's helping clean up after the lunchroom. These are individuals that to me should be in the same category as frontline first respond heroes, because they didn't have to choose to do this. They could have said, no, COVID, I don't want to do this, but they're there. Yeah. And that's the kind of story I hope people tell more about, is they weren't forced to be there. They chose to be there because this is what they felt was right. I mean, that's a hero in my mind.
100%. Yeah. They did it because they felt it was the right thing to do and they wanted to do it. They made that decision. Yeah, for sure. So let's tell me about PsyMood, and for our listeners, more than anything, you spoke about obviously access to mental health supports. Can you just expand on that a bit more into like what types of mental health supports? Are there different areas that PsyMood specializes in? Anything you'd care to share?
Absolutely. So PsyMood is an online platform, and hopefully one day in person too, once everything gets going again. And so what it is an individual would be able to choose the kind of the category or the situation that they're dealing with, but also choose the language that they feel most comfortable with. Because the one thing that we've noticed is trying to delegate your concerns in a language that you're not very familiar with is very difficult, and we could miss some things. So PsyMood platform will actually allocate and connect people from their birth language to specialists, in different countries that are available in that language as well. So they're able to choose who and how they're supported. And in some cases, in the mental health space, you get what you get. But here with PsyMood, you're able to choose. And I think with mental health, if you're able to choose a solution or choose an individual to help you, that is the biggest gift that we could ever provide. And through that, working with partners like yourself and community organizations, being able to share PsyMood to these individuals and groups is very beneficial, because Canada is a country of newcomers, and it's an amazing opportunity. And PsyMood is also doing podcasts and webinars and really trying to get out there so everybody who may not have access to certain technology will be able to find that solution anywhere that they go.
Yeah. And I know in speaking to our nurse navigation team, I mean, that's a real benefit because, as you say, there are so many newcomers and English isn't their first language. So the fact that they can talk to a professional, to our point we talked about earlier, but secondly, talk in their own language, sets you apart, I believe, from any other organization out there that's doing what you're doing. So And what would be so they get to choose, which is great, but what would be the wait times? In other words, if somebody through our navigation team puts them in touch with PsyMood, how long till a person can actually see a specialist on average?
Yeah, so you can book initial 15-minute kind of meeting, and which gets everything started. And after that, then you build that relationship with that specialist. And it basically, very much like a navigational system, you can choose through a calendar of when your appointments are, and they have access to choose. And I use the word choose sort of like quotations is because, especially in mental health, psychology, all kinds of different kind of health mentality, is having the option of choosing is key. So PsyMood gives them the choice. So the wait time is not long. They have the opportunity, the scheduling, using the navigation system support, and all the specialists we stay communicative to as well. So you're in communication with your specialist and your support network on a regular basis. And the wonderful thing about PsyMood is the back end stuff, the individuals that dedicate their time to help this are also very much on call, ready to go. So no one is left hanging, because especially on my side of things, on a personal level, it was that waiting mentality that really deterred me from getting that support that was needed. PsyMood eliminates that, time wasted of waiting to be able to gain access. So you can build a relationship with your specialist in the language that you feel most comfortable with in a personal level, without, being like, well, I don't have time, maybe 5 months from now. It's instant, which is wonderful.
Yeah, which is why we chose you as a partner, because our model is personalized, expert access. If you think of those three words, personalized care, which is what you're saying, and particularly because people have the ability to choose, they're experts in their own field, right? And that personalized expert access, so getting quick access as well.
Mm-hmm.
In the last we looked from Health Canada, the average wait to see a psychiatrist in Canada hovered around 6 months. So you think that when people need treatment and they can't see the person they need for 6 months, that's scary.
It is. And if you're going through a situation, especially that you're so frustrated about because you're trying to find a solution that maybe the English is not as strong, to say to someone, we'll see you in a few months, that's not good enough, and you're so right. Therapists are working so hard, there's not enough of them, so being able to utilize a navigational tool that PsyMood has created to be able to provide specialists from all over, it kind of cuts that wait time down to nil, because you're giving them access in the safety and comfort of their own home without having to go through the journey and wait time, which is key for success.
Well, yeah, and I think there's in the past there's been a stigma attached to mental health, which hopefully is gone now. I believe it's maybe not 100% gone, but it's way better now than it was a year or two or 3 or 5 or 10 years ago. But a lot of the stigma was people were reluctant to go see a mental health professional because who might see them? They're in a small town or in their community, and they have to, go in and see the psychiatrist or the psychologist or whatever it is. Whereas, as you say, now it's virtual through your program, and also they can do it from the comfort of their home, right? Nobody can see where they're going or what they're doing. They can do it from the comfort of their home. So just a great service. Do you care to share any success stories that you might have? Because I'm sure you've got boatloads of them.
Absolutely. Well, I think, the biggest success stories that we find, especially working in the communities, with different languages and barriers that might kind of hindering, is giving individuals the success of feeling comfortable. So we have a lot of people coming and commenting saying, I was afraid, but now I feel comfortable. So the thing is that when you're not having to force your way through a language that you don't understand, and you can speak with your full heart in your birth language without any fear, the greatest comments and compliments that we get is, thank you for providing a service that is built around me, built around my language. Because in a lot of the cultural situations, it is a taboo and a stigma to ask for help. But because it is a digital platform, they don't have to worry about potentially people finding out. And it was very much the same with me as well. And a lot of people, I'm sure, listening, is that fear of what if someone finds out you're going to a therapist or you're going to get help. And unfortunately, that should never be a stigmatism. That should be a proud thing that you're taking the steps to get the support. But a lot of times in different cultures, that could be a bit difficult. So knowing that they have access privately, securely, this is all secure, nothing is saved, nothing is recorded. The specialists are all filtered through with our mental health specialists that really take pride to make sure that the people that are on the platform are truly there for the right reasons and qualified. So I think knowing that they have the ability to have the support in their birth language without the fear of people knowing, that's the greatest compliment I think we ever get.
Yeah. And I assume you're having significant uptake in the Canadian marketplace.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, thankfully through you and organizations that we speak to, is knowing that we're around. The hardest thing is, what is the best tool to find the individuals? And it's word of mouth. The old mentality of word of mouth still works. Obviously social media is key, but the more amazing partners that we have, like yourself and Advica, it allows us to kind of share our message of like, we're here. We're not going to throw it down your throat. We're here if you need. And the more influx of newcomers to Canada, the more opportunities we have to provide that support. Because let's be honest, a lot of the newcomers to Canada are probably coming from a situation that's pretty hard. Maybe a country that's in a little bit of a turmoil. So they're coming with baggage that they need to be supported with. So knowing that they say, hey, we do have several individuals that speak the language that you are familiar with. When you're ready, we're here. And I think that's the best thing that I could ever say is the solution is here when you're ready. And I think that's the best.
Yeah, what a great service. I love it. And filling a real need out there in the market. What do you see as the future when it comes to mental health in Canada? Let's go out 5 or 10 years. What do you see? I mean, I think COVID has had a big impact and forced us, but created an opportunity to be virtual and run both of our businesses virtual. Where do you see it going in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I hope first that the stigmatism of it is gone. I hope that COVID has made us realize that it's okay to be fragile, it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to be kind to yourself and also to others. So I hope that mental health is becoming kind of like the standard of support, in the workplaces even as well, that, you're worried about slipping and falling and hurting your back. Well, mental health should be there too. Corporate world and like yourself that you're creating a wonderful platform for others to follow, is mental health should be included as similar to spraining an ankle in a workplace.
Yeah.
So I hope like unions and things like that, the same thing. We're worried about you falling and hurting yourself at work, but we're also worried about mentally you're falling and you need that support. So I hope in the next 5 or 10 years, mental health solutions is a norm when it comes to support, that it's like, yeah, we have that already. That's no problem. Don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. Every employer should have it. Yeah, every Canadian should have access. It's got to be there. So
it does.
Your service is providing that, which is great. I'd like to just switch gears for a bit. You obviously are training for an Ironman. You look super healthy, and as you know, I wrote a book, and one of the concepts in the book is what I call the wheels of health. So I'm going to put you on the spot for a couple of minutes here to finish off and just ask you what you're doing in each of the wheels of health to keep your own game at the top of the game. And we'll start with the easiest one, which is movement or exercise. So just share with us what you're doing in terms of that, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, first of all, I got your book and I'm reading it. So thank you so much for that. I'm really enjoying it so far. So I appreciate that. I guess besides the activities that I'm doing for training and physical fitness is, I guess in a way, physical yoga. I've been doing a lot more yoga. I find that over time, as we know, working remotely, you become stiff because you're sitting a lot. And I was never a person to do yoga. I never thought it was necessary. But for me now, starting to implement yoga throughout my day, stopping, getting up, moving around, doing some poses has been really beneficial for me, and also helps me focus more at work because I'm not moving on my chair as much in pain. So I'm able to be more focused. So that would be the addition that I added to my already extensive training regimen.
Well, and that will also help you in your triathlon training as well. right? Just
Absolutely.
that
Oh, my knees have feel,
flexibility and
yeah, my knees feel better, which I never thought they could be better, but yeah, they feel so much better.
yeah, that's excellent. You know what, I've kind of done yoga from time to time, but it's not consistent. Mine would be more stretching than yoga. So,
Yeah. Hey, well, stretching in itself is beneficial.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So second wheel of health is around what fuels our body and eating well. So do you have any tricks or any advice you can give our listeners, or what you do in terms of eating well on a daily or weekly basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two things I would say is becoming vegan helped. Listen, I was a meat eater for all my life, and I watched the Food Network, and sometimes I think to myself, oh gosh, that looks good. But being a vegan, it allowed me to really focus on my gut health, which I really had a lot of issues. And again, my mom had colon cancer. So gut health is something that really, if it is hereditary, I should be taking it seriously. So becoming vegan really, really helped as well. And, again, being vegan, eating the right things, utilizing the same things was beneficial. But I also had a very unhealthy relationship with food. I had that mentality where I had to eat as much as I could, snacking a lot. I never felt full. So the hardest thing for me is over the last few years was building a better relationship with eating. That, instead of snacking, have a little bit of a fuller dinner, then I wouldn't be snacking throughout the night. So I had to learn a lot about that. So building a better relationship with food is something that I thought really helped me big time, and mentally too as well.
Yeah, congratulations on that, because that's a big one. I mean, I think everyone deals with that issue on a daily or weekly basis. I know for myself, it's been one too that I've had to overcome. And I don't actually call myself a vegan, because I call myself plant-based. So 90%
Yeah.
of what I do is plant-based on a daily basis. But you know what? I still like my chips the odd time and some other things as well, but try to minimize that as much as possible. So congratulations on
Well,
that.
thank you. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you get up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning. I think you said your workout started at 4:30. So one of the other wheels of health that we get amazing feedback on, because so many people are dealing with it, is their sleep and sleep issues. So can you comment on that, or things that you do personally to ensure you get good REM sleep during the night?
Yeah, so I did actually start doing a lot more in the last few years, REM sleep throughout the day, even just 30 minutes of REM sleep to kind of recharge the battery throughout the day. Because when you're waking up at 4:30, your body will start to get a bit tired around 3 or 4 o'clock in the day. So utilizing 30 minutes of REM sleep, even just 30 minutes of laying on the yoga mat, being quiet and being silent, really helped recharge. I'm really reluctant to try to utilize like melatonin and things like that that are artificial, because if I can utilize, earlier to bed, 9 o'clock, the hardest thing for me is turning technology off, because I was very much laying to bed, get the iPad, watch something, and trying to turn that off was very difficult. But now I notice that because of what time I wake up, the activities I do through the day, and then the activities I do before bed, I'm so drained that as soon as it hits 9 o'clock, I'm out. And I wake up naturally without really assistance of an alarm, because your body, as you know, you build such a routine that it's like, okay, 4:30, click. Okay, 9 o'clock, click. So learning that, but I also think reducing my meat intake and dairy before bed and removing that really helped big time, because I wasn't having so much indigestion, because I was eating more of a clean meal. So that helped me sleep better too as well.
Yeah. Well, your biggest energy depletion is digesting your food, right? So if you're having late time snacks or big foods or hard to digest foods, then that's affecting your sleep. So your diet, and these are all related, as you know, and that's why I call them the wheels of health, because we need to look at all of them versus just one or two of them. So that's great. And I've had a similar experience as well. I wake up without an alarm clock most times. Most nights before my alarm goes off, I'm already up, and because I've gone to bed early. And yeah, most nights I have a very good sleep. Do you, just out of interest, use any sleep devices like Whoop or Aura or any of those?
Great question. So I am a Whoop guy. I've been
Okay.
a Whoop guy for a few years now, and honestly, it is such a nice feeling to have on record your sleep, because it helps you benefit the next day. So yeah, I'm a Whoop guy. I'm happy to have a Whoop on my wrist.
I like to see, I don't know if you can see that, but I like to see that on my Whoop.
Nice. Well, that's actually very good. Wow,
So good.
that's
Yeah,
impressive.
it doesn't happen every day, let me tell you.
Yeah, no kidding.
I
Holy
was in a
cow,
race
that's
the
goal.
other day, and the day after the race, it was like redlining. So
Yeah, I've done a few red lines. Yeah.
yeah. So that's excellent. And the last one, which very much fits into our discussion today, is around mindfulness, or looking after your stress levels. And what are you doing on is there any regimens, or you mentioned yoga, but are there any other things you do to ensure you keep your mind in check and in a very nice place?
Yeah, so I've been a practicing Buddhist for a long time. So meditation is key, but the one thing that I have found that has been beneficial lately, especially during COVID and the uncertainty, was I always meditate, but I also say continuously, be gentle with yourself. And I think we are in a society where, like, we are put in a position where we have to do this, be this. We have to be surrounded by what we're supposed to be. And sometimes we're so aggressive to ourselves to be successful, to have this and to have that, that just taking time to be gentle with yourself and to be vulnerable with yourself really helped me take some time away throughout my day to just be in silent, but to repeat my mantra of just be gentle. And that really does help, because the world around us is hard on us enough. So we don't need to do the same for ourselves. So being gentle with yourself is something that I think is very beneficial.
Yeah, I love that. Be gentle with yourself. I love that saying, because you're right. Life is tough enough and has its own challenges, that we don't need to then beat ourselves up over things that, during the day or night. So be gentle to yourself.
Exactly.
So, yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Of course. Thank you.
So you know what, from what I can see, it seems like your wheels are in balance. I'm sure it's like most of us, though, every once in a while one goes off kilter, but that's human, right? And then we need to rejig it and get it back in line again. But it seems like you're doing some amazing things to keep your wheels of health full and in balance. So congratulations on that, Ross.
Oh, thank you very much.
Also, it's been such a pleasure to have you on, and we're so proud to have you as part of our network. We will, for our listeners out there and our Advica Health members, they can, of course, access your services through our nurse navigation network at any time. But we will also make sure we put in the show notes the link to your website and blog, and also your podcast, because I've been listening to them as well.
Yeah.
For any of our listeners. So just to wrap up, thank you so much again, and it's been a pleasure and a lot of fun having you on the show today.
Well, thank you, Kevin, very much. It's an honor to be here, and look forward to connecting more with you down the road.
Excellent. Great, Ross. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. You too, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning into our podcast today. For all of our listeners, I invite you to visit advicahealth.com, where you can easily become an Advica member to take advantage of some of the amazing services we offer. You can also access our latest blogs and listen to some of the best medical advice available on our podcast. Don't forget to grab a copy of my latest book, It's Never Too Late to Be Healthy, that is available to order through our website. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.